let's have a look at the nitrogen cycle. Now, the nitrogen cycle speaks to the movement of nitrogen between the Earth and the atmosphere. So it's between the Earth and the atmosphere. Now, between the Earth and the atmosphere, there is an overall cycle, right? So there are multiple reactions that occur with nitrogen, right, within various forms that allow it to create one entire ring of repeating reactions that allow for these nutrients to be recycled, right? So this is a part of nutrient cycling. Now, some of these things that drive these reactions are just solely chemical, right, and biological as well, and some of them are just just atmospheric, right, or man-made. So we're gonna be looking at all of the processes that make the nitrogen cycle tick. Number one would be nitrogen fixation. Just like carbon fixation, right, it speaks to moving inorganic nitrogen, right, or turning inorganic nitrogen into a type of organic form of nitrogen, right? But mostly it's from nitrogen to ammonia. From nitrogen to ammonia, right? So we're turning nitrogen to ammonia. There are three different ways. You have generally atmospheric. Atmospheric speaks to the spontaneity of lightning, right? So if nitrogen is within the air, the energy from lightning, right? The energy stored in lightning can force nitrogen to accept hydrogen within the air and form ammonia, right? But in most cases, it's going to actually form nitrates. So they can form nitrates mostly. Alright? So we're gonna have the creation of mostly nitrates, right? Or nitrogen oxide, right? Mostly. So let me just clear that up. So the energy from lightning usually creates nitrogen oxide mostly. You have other types of products and deviations, but nitrogen oxide would probably be the most one, right? So there are gonna be various oxides. So it doesn't have to be NO2, but the variety of nitrogen oxides, right? And then this is carried by rain into the soil, right? To be used by plants. There is the next step, or the next type, industrial. So industrial processes. So we all would remember the Haber process, right? Sometimes called Haber-Bosch process. Now, the Haber process would be the type of reaction that combines hydrogen with nitrogen, right? So it is really the combination of nitrogen and hydrogen to create fertilizers, right? Even though this is a very energy inefficient process because of equilibrium interferences, right? So that's more on the chemical side. But the Haber process is really the production of ammonia. Of NH3, right? Mostly to be used in fertilizers, right? So we know that plants need nitrates and nitrogen compounds in order to grow, right, healthily, to create their proteins and stuff. So the Haber process is usually done to create fertilizers, that nitrate-based or nitrogen-based fertilizers, so the plants can use. Right. The third thing, well, yeah. So let's just look at this. The fertilizers are usually added to the soil, right? And this allows for plants right? This is just going to be continued. Like, this allows for plants to get them, right? So plants get the nitrogen from the soil to create their proteins and to live. The next part now, or the next type of nitrogen fixation, is somewhat biological. Right? So biological nitrogen fixation. Right? So this usually happens within or bacteria. Right? Just showing a small diagram of bacteria. So nitrogen fixing bacteria. Right? Now, nitrogen fixing bacteria, right, are usually the ones that are found within symbiotic relationships, right, within nitrogenous root nodules. So we tend to have different types of nitrogen fixing bacteria, such as the rhizobium, right? We have different we have other organisms, right, that are done independently, right? So rhizobium is really done with the root nodules, right? But we have some independent ones. Right, so remember this is with the root nodules. Right? So it's gonna be symbiosis. Right? Symbiosis. But here we have independent ones. So we have other types of nitrogen fixing bacteria. Right? Like Azobacter. Right? It's like Azobacter are Clostridium species. The genus Clostridium. Some ones from the genus from Clostridium does it as well. Right? So we're gonna have some of these. Right? So we have that. Some other ones exist, like Azolla, right? But we don't really have to look into it that much, right? So that's really nitrogen fixation, right? Nitrogen fixation as a reaction is really N, right? Nitrogen itself, N2 plus 3 moles of hydrogen gas, and that should give you 2 moles of ammonia. Right? So that's nitrogen fixation so far. Right? So yeah, that's nitrogen fixation. Right? The process of taking atmospheric nitrogen which is inorganic, right, and fixing it into ammonia, whether it be atmospheric using lightning, industrial using the Haber process, or biological using the different bacteria like the symbiotic rhizobium, Azobacter, Clostridium species, Azolla. So that is it.